Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order our Special Education Advisory Committee meeting of Thursday, November 9th, 2023. We currently do not have quorum, so we are going to start with the information stuff, do our sort of roll call, and if we achieve quorum along the way, then we will circle back to the items that we would need to approve and vote on. Okay, so I will start out with the Durham District School Board's land acknowledgement. The Durham District School Board acknowledges that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships, both historic and modern, with the territories upon which our school board and schools are located. Today, this area is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge the Durham region forms a part of the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, Mississauga peoples, and the treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation. It is on these ancestral and treaty lands that we teach, work, and live. I'd also like to state our Indigenous rights and human rights statement. The Durham District School Board recognizes Indigenous rights are distinct. In the exercise of those rights, Indigenous staff and students shall not be subjected to actions with the aim or effect of depriving these distinct rights. The Durham District School Board is committed to learning and working environments that center human rights and equity and are safe, welcoming, respectful, equitable, accessible, inclusive, and free from discrimination. Okay, we will move on then to the roll call.
Tara Kelly, Durham Center Association. Tracy Reddick, representative of DSA. Melissa Cook, representative of Elementary DSA.
Rowan Jarvis, Learning Disability Association, Durham Region.
Elizabeth Daniel, member at large. Morgan Cameron, member at large.
Adam Fitzpatrick from the Building Center.
Andrew McCauley, Superintendent of Inclusive Student Services.
Lisa Rye, Recording Secretary. Michelle Crawford, System Lead, Inclusive Student Services.
Connor Jenkinson, System Lead, Inclusive Student Services.
Eva Kyriakides, Association for Bright Children, and SEAC Chair. Okay, we are going to move on then to our staff reports with the administration report.
Perfect. So we were pleased to be able to have several of our team members present over this past week around PPM 169, which is around student mental health, as well as the DDSB 3-year mental health and wellbeing action plan, and our 23-24 1-year action plan. So members of SEAC, that has been distributed through email as well, and you can also find that at minutes 16 and 30. At the YouTube broadcast in the previous meeting as well. I know that there were some really great questions that did come from our board and our trustees that led to actually ask Andrew McCauley if you could actually share anything around that.
So PPM 169 on student mental health comes into effect for January 1st with 11 requirements of districts. So we wanted to make sure that we instill public confidence and the confidence for our trustees that our action plans actually are in quite a good alignment with the 11 expectations. And so the presentation focused on the social emotional learning program that's out in our schools, as well as the Black Excellence Made Evident responsive programming that our social work and psych staff are running in the district. Our trustees asked a really great range of questions in terms of programs, services, responsiveness, in terms of amendments to services and how we engage student voice and choice in service and how we track our data. So really good conversation. And so if any of the associations, there's discussion around student mental health and well-being in intersection with the schools. The video link and timestamp that Connor has referenced is a really good kind of investment of about 20-25 minutes to hear Stephanie Pelgore, mental health lead, and Dr. Sandra Newton, who is one of the members of psychological services, present in that forum. I think the only other topic that would intersect specifically with SEAC is use of the absence code, where we took it from being around physical health to being physical health and mental health and well-being under the same code. So students are able to have that sense of agency. And we recognize that that is sometimes choice and voice in terms of their own mental health and well-being, and other times we have students using it where they're experiencing some systemic barriers, racism within the system, and taking that breaking pause and how we engage to address that. And so we did make a comment that we are not specifically tracking and leaning into why the use of codes, but again, focusing on the relationships and caring adults. So very well worth it if you have a few minutes. But other than that, prior to the December break, our 1-year action plan will be posted on the website. The 3-year mental health and wellbeing action plan is already there. The 1 year is a new requirement, so that was in draft in the board package, so happy to take any feedback from SEAC. And we will be posting prior to the December school break, so that we are in full compliance with the PPM at that time.
Thank you. And then we'd also like to be able to share our latest version of our impact updates that are coming from the ISS, or Inclusive Student Services Department. This month, we are happy to be able to have Dr. Sarah Schlein, who is our Senior Manager and Clinical Lead for our Psychological Services team, just be able to discuss what the impact update is actually going to be sharing. And she shared a video with us, so just let me take one moment to share that with everybody.
Good evening, members of SEAC and guests. I'm Sarah Schlein, and I lead the Psychological Services team for the DDSB. I'm grateful for the opportunity this month to have our team highlighted in the Inclusive Student Services Impact Update, and for all of you to learn more about the great work our team is doing for students and their adults throughout the system. To date, during this school year, we've had opportunities to continue professional learning along with colleagues from the social work team on trauma-informed client-centered practices. This learning translates into the best possible care for all students, as these approaches center on connecting, listening, and developing supportive plans of care at school. You might notice that these priorities are echoed throughout our mental health and well-being action plan, and they're an example of how the work that our team enacts fits into the DDSB's mental health strategy. We're excited to receive updated tools with which to conduct psychological assessments. There are already assessments underway for students in service of transition planning and individualized educational and social emotional planning at many of the schools across the district. Finally, I'm proud to share on the team's behalf that we've started the year of professional development with sessions including academic assessment for certs, mental health first aid, applied suicide intervention skills training, and behavior management systems already underway and in the calendar. So on behalf of Psychological Services, thank you for all of the work that you do in support of students and our DDSB communities. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person this evening, but here's wishing you a great meeting.
And the work of our psychological services team members is always ongoing, and it is something that as a district, we know there are many of our families who do come into contact with many of our students. They're integral parts of our school-based inclusive student services teams, where they work directly with educators, they're working with administrators, and really looking at those close contact supports and how we can really make sure that students are finding those means to be successful at school as well. So they form a really vital part of our system as well. And another really vital part around our system we want to bring an update around is next Wednesday, November 15th, we mark across the DDSB Classroom Support Appreciation Day. Our classroom support staff provide incredible direct support for our students. They comprise working groups of our educational assistants, American Sign Language interpreters, interveners, and language acquisition support workers. And for those students and those families and our educators who are working directly side by side, work them and being able to see that, we know how much they are appreciated. So something that we are going to be able to be happy to be able to share. We have a couple of versions that have already been done, but we've asked SEAC actually to share one of the classroom activities that are going to be done across the school as well, where we are sharing messages of appreciation for our classroom support staff. And they're going to be created by students, they're going to be created by staff, just really recognizing the great work that they're doing across our schools as well. And again, please, when you do get that chance, if you do get the moment, say a thank you. On November 15th, it's one of those days, and it was actually really nice as we have Adam with us from the Ability Center. It sounds like he's even going to be hopping in with us as well. Let's direct therapeutic rec side. So thank you, appreciate that. And back over to you, Chair.
Okay, do we have any questions with respect to the part? Yes, Rob?
Just one question, the first portion when you were talking about the system being implemented by psych services, it's for the students to that improvement. How is the improvement gauged? Is that, when you put that through, what do you need to see to say, okay, this is a success, or we're on our way?
And I think for you, Chair, and I think it's something that it's very individualized. So our psychological services team members, a lot of our clinical team members, because they are bound by their college, professional ethics, they're bound by their professional college standards. They actually do create service plans around each particular student. So what that measure of success looks like and what that truly looks like for each student will be very individualized for each student, where it may be, again, around being able to very easily come into class. I'm just trying to think of a general example where you might have to think where he's working with the team and how do we build and how do we work towards making sure students feel successful about being able to come into class if there are some of those worries around getting to class. That might be one particular pathway towards. And I said there's so many different other things as well that they work side by side, but they do, in part of their clinical practice, they are providing those service plans and they're following their own models as well. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions with respect to the administration report? No? Okay, then we will move on to, we don't have a trustee here for board report. So we will move on to our presentation with, with that from the Ability Center. Thank you.
That's okay, I don't have a name tag, it's okay.
Just bear with that. No problem. Yes, I'm just trying to. There we go.
Good to go? Awesome. Okay, so hello everybody. Thanks for inviting Ability Center to the SEAC committee to share some of the impact that we've had from Ability Center standpoint and working with some of our partners here at DDSB. So the couple of topics I'm going to look at here is therapeutic recreation and Durham District School Board and some of the programs that we are in partnership with. So if you don't know who Ability Center is, our purpose is to unlock potential through accessibility. Our vision is a better barrier-free life for all Canadians, and our mission is reimagining accessibility and redefining the way Canadians live, work, and play. The next question is usually, what is therapeutic recreation? So the picture that's depicted on the slide here is from our TR in the Summer program, which I'll touch on throughout in the presentation. So therapeutic recreation, or TR as I'll refer to it, utilizes functional intervention, education, and recreation participation to improve well-being, physical and mental health, as well as functional capacity for individuals. So that is our dictionary definition, but what we do in the schools is bringing the idea of that heavy recreation participation to enhance resiliency in special education students. So our TR in the Schools program. So in partnership with local school boards, both locally and provincially, Ability Center works closely with schools and educators to bring the benefit of therapeutic recreation into the classroom. The purpose of TRIS is to promote inclusion and resiliency among young individuals to improve and sustain their well-being, development, and quality of life. TRIS focuses on creation, movement, and education, which are our three pillars in our TR department, to engage meaningful participation in school and community settings. So currently, and I got permission from Andrew to share, we're committing. The way TR kind of started, we started off as a 12-week program, realized that's not nearly enough time to start having impact. We moved to have 2 full semesters with the students, great amount of time, but what was next? So we're committing the next 3 years to our 8 schools. We realized that if we want to actually have intentional and meaningful impact and make these community connections with these students, Not only do we want to be there for the next 3 years, but we're working with elementary and high school and helping that transition into high school from a recreation standpoint. So it's a pretty innovative program that we've been able to create. Go to the next one. So some of our impact from our tier in this, I think this might have been this is our tier in schools impact. So our impact report is on our website. There's multiple versions of our impact reports. You can head onto our website. But it was delivered to over 170 students and supported over 60 educators. Over a single semester of programming, 80% of the TRIS students increased their competence and developed important life skills, such as interpersonal communication, coping, and leadership skills. So all of these skills were extracted from doing engaging and meaningful activities. But looking at it from the outside, it just looks like a bunch of fun that's happening. So we might do social games, art, music, improv, drama, sport, creative, like we kind of do everything that, but we don't go anywhere near literacy, numeracy. I'm not a teacher, so we make sure that we kind of stick with our recreation pieces, but the point is to build that resiliency through these different activities, so providing leadership skills. And as everybody here probably knows, a lot of the students do have coping strategies. They just might get used maybe 5 minutes too late. So it's kind of working on maintaining that and make sure that we're using them at the appropriate times. So our Tier in the Summer program, this came about 2 years ago. Essentially what Tier in the Summer is, and we worked really closely with our educators and partners in the school board to identify what skills are usually lost over the summer that really impact the beginning of that year. So the main ones that really came up were obviously coping, social skills, transitions, and physical activity. I'm sure everybody here, I can see lots of heads nodding, so good, that means that we nailed it. The first round of the program was great, but we had a lot of really great learnings that we got from our research is embedded through all levels. So we talked to the students, the families, the DDSB also supplied us with 2 EAs throughout the whole summer. So we got their feedback and the team's feedback to say, what did we miss this first summer? The biggest gap that happened was that we had some individuals that required one-to-one support, and we weren't able to provide that. So this past summer, we had an entirely new way to participate in the program, which was our community integration side. Participants came with a support worker, and we developed a very personalized program that allowed them to come to Ability Center at their own pace, their own time. They basically have a free membership for the entire summer, but it was overlooked by our TR team. And we actually had some individuals integrate into the program throughout the summer, and they became more independent. So this quote's just from a parent that we got feedback from. So she said, "Excellent program. My son has never wanted to be part of anything social due to bullying. This is the first time I've seen the confidence and glow in his face, and finally feeling like he's part of something bigger. He talks about working at the center. He has goals and knows there is a place for him at the program." So that was one quote. It's in the TR impact report that I believe was shared. So everybody can kind of take a look at that. So coming out of the summer, we ended up applying for the Strong Inclusive Communities Grant through the City of Oshawa. So the SIC grant will aim to educate the South Oshawa Community Center staff on accessibility and inclusion practices. So Ability Center has a lot of professional development opportunities related to accessibility and inclusion. And we're going to be co-facilitating with the South Oshawa Community Center staff on their cooking night, and then providing mixed ability sport outlet and arts and creative activities. Working in collaboration with the local area schools, so we are working very closely with GL Roberts and Prima from the Catholic Board. The education team is going to identify potential youth participants and peer leaders. So they're going to help promote this to mainstream and special education students, as well as identify mainstream or special education students who would be great peer mentors. These students are going to get volunteer hours, and then they will be guaranteed an interview for the upcoming 2024 summertime at South Oshawa or Ability Center and then they'll be able to hopefully get hired at one of the camps. The biggest thing with this grant is that it is directed at the neighborhood in South Oshawa. It is not, South Oshawa Community Center and Ability Center very much agree. We do not want kids coming from all the way in Brooklyn, coming all the way down. Not saying that there are students in Brooklyn that don't need that type of support, but the South Oshawa Community Center is right in the heart of that south area, and we have great relationships with both schools, so we're gonna really kind of push to use this as a kind of right after school program. So there's multiple ways to connect with us. Everybody always just push generic email, so I put who you could actually ask for as well. Some professional development opportunities, you can contact our sport and recreation department. So you can ask for Bronwyn or Victoria, they'll be able to help you out. Our employment services programming, which is EMP services, you can ask for Ashley. Mixed ability sport, which is really taken off. If you haven't seen any great videos, you can go on our website as well. And you can ask for Malcolm. And for therapeutic recreation or TR in the schools, or TR in the summer, you can contact myself, Jamie, or Emma. But I'm pretty well versed in all of these areas, so it's easier just to contact me. You can do that as well. Any questions? I think I'm under my time too, right? Oh, nailed it.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Adam, I appreciate all that. And also, I just wanted to reiterate the DDSB's firm commitment towards therapeutic recreation, especially extending our direct support going into the summer of 2024 as well.
We're very excited and we're very fortunate to have this partnership with DDSB.
That's awesome. Any questions, Karen? Mr. Or comment?
So, my son, also is in the TRIS program during the school year, and he loves it. He's like, I'm going to TRIS today, so you're doing something right.
That's
So
great to hear. I will pass that along.
Yeah, so he really enjoys that, so really, really great program.
Does anybody have any questions for Adam? Mr. Spectrum, Ability Center, or anything to offer? No?
Nice, easy, let me off easy tonight.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I know a little bit about the Ability Center, and I know it's a fantastic place for kids with special education needs.
Absolutely.
It's nice to see that it exists, quite honestly. So, thank you very much.
Very welcome, thank you for having me.
And, okay, so we are going to move on, and I would like to welcome Kelly to the table. And, no, it's okay. And we now have quorum, which means we can circle back around and approve the agenda. Does anybody have any questions or concerns with the agenda today? Excellent, can we get a motion to approve? Tara, second, Kelly, all in favor? Motion passed. All right, now we are moving on to the approval of the minutes from the October 19th, 2023 meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review those minutes? Does anybody have any questions or concerns or comments on those minutes? Okay, can we get a motion to approve the minutes? Kelly, seconded by Rowan, all in favor? Motion passed. Fantastic, and then we now moving on then to our board report.
Wonderful.
Over to you, Kelly.
Okay, thank you so much. And so we just had our standing committee meeting on Monday. So at this current moment, any updates that we're talking about now is about our MYSP, which is our multi-year strategic plan. And happy to say we are in phase 3, which is our synthesis and development. So we've gotten all the feedback from the different, our community, I don't like saying stakeholders, our community partners, the schools, the children. And so now we've taken some of that back and we're doing a little bit more of our condensing work. And then we're gonna be moving on to phase 4, which is implemented. So I wanted to share a little interesting thing that we've also seen in, as trustees with the feedback from SEAC and from everyone, is we had, it was a sketch artist that took all the information from students and they did a beautiful display, like in live sketch. And it was, all the students, their comments and their feedback, similar to what we've seen in the Word piece, but it was nice to see actual drawings of the children and their actual feedback. So it was good to see the students have their voice. So that's where we are. And also recently, unfortunately, we had to continue with our censoring of Trustee Stone. That was one of the items that came up in our meeting. And yes, sorry, that was for our special board meeting. That was also on Monday. And that's it for now. There's no other updates. Any questions?
Yeah, do anybody have any questions for Trustee Miller with respect to the board report? All right, moving on then to our open discussion period with respect. First one, starting off with this SEAC survey results, the draft impact statement that we were going to prepare. As I don't know if anybody's had a chance to take a look at it, if you have any comments. There's a really tight timeline on sort of approving what's in here so that it can go to design and to, you know, be made into a nice sort of information sheet to go to the certs and stuff in the meeting, right?
So three of that.
Yeah.
So we do have a bit of a tight timeline. So just like in the other impact updates, this was looking to be our next impact update and being able to bring some of the actions of SEAC and really what SEAC is about, and then also really reporting on what that parent caregiver survey was. Because that's important to be able to get out into the community. I know we've discussed it, but I think it's also very important to push it out to the community. So just as our chair was saying, it will be important for us to be able to look and, yes, this is draft form. It is not going to look like this. Just saying, so even things such as the wonderful quotes that you'll see at the bottom, when we were going through the process of even just what the last one from psychological services was, this is what we typically look at from here. And then we start playing and we start dropping things in, and this is the way that our creative services like to be able to take a very rough format, and then they turn it into something beautiful like the impact update. So I think it's just really, we need to be able to, as on the staff side, we have to be able to turn that around as quickly as possible. I'm just saying that with a smile on my face, as quickly as we can. So if we can tonight, I know it would be really, really important for us to be able to say, yes, we like some of these points, we want to move ahead of this, or there's some things we need to shift or that we need to change.
Right. Well, given our timing is pretty much on point, if you guys want to take a look at what, Tara and I had a bit of a sneak peek and sort of already provided some input through that. If you want to take a quick look at it and see if you have anything we could give tonight so that we can, you know, allow Connor to take this back tonight. Yeah, confirm the content and then sort of move it on. Does everybody have a copy of it? You have a copy there? Does anybody want? I have my own paper copy. Sorry?
It's just the one hard copy of it?
I have one hard copy.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You got it on there? Oh, yeah. Or you have, oh, you have an extra two. Does anybody else have another extra here? Did you guys want to see, you weren't here for the last meeting to sort of go into its results of we did a survey, survey that went out to like parents and kids with special education needs, and this is sort of the takeaway from the survey that we want to put forward at a meeting that's a official activity day that's coming. So.
I think the last sentence in the CI message for parents, there was need to break that into two sentences. It's the word version.
Great, thank you, and thank you for everybody who's watching online's patience while we just went through those and provided our revisions to that impact statement. We are going to move on to discussion with respect to the parent/caregiver engagement event that we've talked about in the past. Just to recap for people who weren't able to make it last meeting, if we go back to prior to the pandemic, we were neck deep in preparing for and creating a advocacy night for parents and caregivers of kids within the special education programs. Sort of to have to help sort of guide parents on, effective advocacy and who we are, what we could do to help them, but, sort of have an event. And of course, the pandemic hit, that kiboshed everything. It stopped it right in its tracks. And after the SEAC survey, sort of thought, well, this is a good time to sort of revisit that idea and whether, we want to move ahead again in putting on an event, for a number of years now, and it seems to be working because we're getting inquiries about SEAC and SEAC meetings and that sort of thing. We wanted to get our name out there and for people to know who we were and that we were there. And one of the best ways to do that is to put on events so parents meet us, see us, and hear from us. So it looks like we have a tentative possible date if we wanted to go forward and put on something like that of April 10th.
So Wednesday.
Is that Wednesday? Oh, I think so.
Not that that's a bad thing.
It is still Wednesday. Yeah. Thursdays are almost good days. Yeah.
Are we making this a day event, an evening event?
I think it's at the will of SEAC. I think for most parents, events during the day are often difficult, right? Because lots of people are working. So I don't think we want to put parents in a position of having to take a day off work to be involved in something like that. The question is, and we have to think about time. Like, I think a lot of events start around 7 o'clock, so it allows people evening things, so it allows people to, sort of get dinner, kind of feed the kids and then come back out if they want to, right? So the question is where. I mean, that would be the other thing, whether or not we're gonna look at having it at the board office or at one of the schools. Right? I would like to keep it as central to kind of everything as possible, just because people are kind of coming from all directions, right? Yeah.
In consideration for hybrid and broadcast.
Yeah.
I think what we've heard fairly consistently from families is sometimes they're not able. I think back to some of the contributions of Hannah around the table in terms of the extra layers for some of our families and the ability to log in. That may also enable parents or caregivers who work evening shifts to maybe adjust their work schedule to be able to access the information when they're not able to attend in person. So if you're open to kind of a hybrid model, then that starts to scope where you can have it, because we need, I hear Andrew's voice in the back, our comms team to be able to support the tech to do that.
And the other thing, what we had talked about, I'm just trying to go, we had a committee, we would need to set up a committee as well of people who can get together sort of outside at the SEAC table just for planning purposes to discuss, the where and when and all of that. And sort of putting together an actual program. We had talked about sort of a couple of possible workshops, right? Maybe one for parents and one for kids, right? For especially the older kids. I think it's really important. And something I very much worked on with my kids is learning how to effectively advocate for themselves within the schools, within the classroom, right? And how to handle situations that maybe don't go as they want them to, or, what the process is. So that once they get from high school into, in next stages, whether that's post-secondary, right, like college and university or wherever, they have those skills to take forward with them. Because, you know, mom and dad won't always, or caregivers won't always be there throughout life to sort of do that same advocacy. So those are things we need to consider, I think, sit down as a team. I'm not sure how we manage that as a hybrid, whether we are able to have some of that recorded in separate rooms, like for the students and for parents, because I think that would be great. And, you know, we've sort of talked about having a parent advocacy sort of breakout thing where we would, you know, sort of go through, you know, the steps of things and, you know, who you contact, when you contact them, sort of the levels you go through to get to where you need to be. Because I think that's important. A lot of parents don't know where to go next, kind of, because they feel stuck. They don't know where the next step is and don't necessarily know how to find it. It's very overwhelming, I think, sometimes for parents. So I guess basically too with that is, anybody want to be on a committee? That includes rep, like the high school and elementary reps too. Everybody can be involved. There's a element or secondary representative at the time who was on SEAC who did say she wanted to be involved if we ever brought it back up. You know who I'm talking about. Her face is right there, and unfortunately the name is gone.
Question, I would love to participate, but as a trustee, I want everyone else to participate, or I'm not sure how that works, but I'm just wondering if that might give us an email since some of our members are here.
I think, well, we'll definitely send out a separate email to everybody and say, hey, we're gonna look at putting this together. And, you know, let me know if you wanna be in the committee, and then, you know, we can meet at a coffee shop or meet wherever and sit down and kind of plan it out, or wherever, you know, going forward to sort of plan it out, because I think that's one of the things that many of us around this table have experience with, right? We're not just advocating at this table, but advocating within the schools and within the classrooms, right? So I think that's an important thing. So I will send that email out, but as we stand right here, does SEAC want to make a motion to approve an event date on April 10th?
Sure.
All right, any seconders?
I'm good. That works for me.
Morgan, all in favor?
Good,
Not sure if Wednesdays will work for me, we'll see.
Yeah.
I have a question, how early would we need to plan in terms of like space and, or even if you're gonna say, for example, use a school space, how early would you need to start, like security level?
Connor, go ahead.
So for you in that sense, we can work with our communities and schools partners, and that's something where depending on how big and depending on how many rooms and how many other things,
Right.
we can work with them, and you'd be amazed how flexible sometimes, because also schools will sometimes have their school nights booked, and we can sometimes sneak in if it's a school.
Right.
So, yeah, there's lots of flexibility, so I think it's a matter of,
I don't know if I said our motion passed, but it did. And I mean, I know it's difficult for everybody to make it all the time, but hopefully.
Yeah, as of right now, Wednesdays don't work for me, but
Things might change. I guess the other thing would be to talk to, you know, our IT experts about where they need it, right? In order to book a space.
yeah, and I would say I think SEAC needs to design the event, and then we work with our IT team, then see what I think is really feasible. Because I wouldn't want to limit it based off of our potential capabilities. I would want us to really look at what we could do and then determine if we need to scale it or scale it. Because I wanted that it should be something that is based on, again, the goal of SEAC and looking at what is going to best serve or it's right.
Okay. The other thing I want to make sure of is that date, that potential date is, there's nothing going to conflict with it. It's already checked. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll send out an email. We'll try to get a planning team together, and we'll go from there. Maybe we can try it. I don't know how early we'll get a meeting together, but we'll try and get one sooner rather than later, so that you know, we can bring something forward quickly to you guys for, okay? Anybody have any comments, any further comments, questions? Go
I'm just
ahead.
like, I'm already in idea mode, because
Your brain's going.
yeah, I never not there yet, but just, I would just say that and through you, Chair, I like the idea of the space where you're in one room and then you kind of go around, like what we've done using here, using our school that's here, and then we come back into the main space, and then there's different things, and then you can use some of the rooms in one central spot. So I like that idea, because people are already here, they can go from one
Yeah,
area to, and then use it where, if there was a.
if there's, I was sort of thinking of like a, you know, how Pick kind of does it, where you have your main, you know, sort of your central place that you sort of have a, you know, an introduction and a discussion, and then you break out into the rooms, and you come back for a final, you know, wrapping up, event. That's kind of what I had envisioned, but that would be something too for committee itself to have that discussion around, right? But, you know, and how many breakouts would you have? Because I think we want to keep it fairly focused on what we're doing, but.
Plus, there's something, if we're gonna do the hybrid media online, having people wander around into different rooms is very non-conducive for online engagement, right?
Right, that would almost have to be a recorded sessions, right, that could then be posted or something afterwards, separate. Or separate, but that's a discussion to have with our IT, the IT team. Once we kind of decide what we're gonna do. Okay, I know, my brain starts going too, so I'll try and get that email, I'll try and get an email out tomorrow. I'll try and get an email out tomorrow to SEAC, and then hopefully we can put something together sooner rather than later. Yeah.
I think we got 2 volunteers for the subcommittee already. That's all I'm gonna say.
It's just the 21st to the 28th are out of the question for me, but outside of that. So we'll get everything, and we'll get a date set for a meeting, and then hopefully we can bring something back, hopefully next month. Okay? All right, then moving on from the business arising from the minutes, I didn't hear back from anybody on my letter. Although a couple of people at the table here weren't here, I think I might still have some copies of the letter that I had drafted to the ministry on the trades, the skills trades. Because we had, you know, had concerns around the fact that it was sort of like a leaving of the school system completely, and as opposed to sort of in tandem with getting a high school diploma. I have one copy here, that I can find. I thought I had one, right, thing here, but I guess I don't. Can I circulate that by email again to the group, because I think, like, I know I need to tweak it in other ways, but I'd like to get other people's actual input into the letter, because I think it's really important that when we send it, it really is SEAC's voice, and that, it's concise, okay? If we could do that, that would be great. I'll try to put that in my email. And the other one was the SEAC membership update.
Correct. So through you, Chair, the SEAC's motion for the alternate for Autism Ontario that was approved SEAC in October, went to special board on Monday night, and was also unanimously approved by board.
Okay, perfect.
With thanks to trustee Oldfield and Miller for bringing that forward and making the motion, seconding it, and then support from the team.
Wonderful, thank you so much, appreciate that. Okay. Moving on then to association reports and committee reports. We can't do committee reports because since Neva's not here, and she is our representative on the Parent Involvement Committee, as I use an acronym, Parent Involvement Committee, and she's not here. So do we have any association reports? No? All right, correspondence. Do we have any correspondence? No correspondence. Community concerns. Did we get anything from,
Not around programs and service, it was more an individual student, so not appropriate discussion.
not appropriate discussion on the table? Okay.
But happy to get feedback back to the important parent and through, OPIC as well. So
Okay.
Michelle is, already in connection with her.
Okay, perfect. And just while I'm on community concerns, it's not really community concerns, but you guys can see the feedback on the website from Jen, right, with respect to how you have to do a lot of clicking to get to SEAC. I would like to see that brought forward more on the website, easier to access on the website for parents. Because if they didn't know about us, they'd have an awfully hard time finding out about us through that process. Anybody else have any community concerns to raise tonight? No? Good meeting, all right, then, we're moving on to celebrations and successes. Anybody have any celebrations or successes? Yes.
Through you, Chair. I'm sorry, this should have been added to our report, but I just wanted to mention the annual event. It is a success, so I'm gonna slide it in. Is the Life Beyond High School, which happens on November 29th. It's from 7 to 9 p.m. It's a fabulous event with our community partners. It's about sharing services, resources, and programs for young adults with accommodation needs. Some of the partners that do participate include DSO, so Developmental Services Ontario, Durham College, Lake Ridge Community Sports Services, and Community Living. It is an incredibly well-attended event, so I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware and put it through the chair. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Kelly, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Is that an open event?
Yes. Any other celebrations or successes?
I do have a question, but it should have been asked long before. Can I go ahead now?
Go ahead now, yeah,
I do
absolutely.
apologize because I wasn't here last week when I was supposed to ask it. It's regarding ONLIT. And I know there was the literacy team that spoke when I was here 2 weeks ago, 2 sessions ago rather, and we were speaking about the ONLIT. So we as LDADR were just speaking and we said, okay, the ONLIT portal website is probably familiar to everybody, they've gone through it, and we just wanted to understand how it was received and basically the plan to implement on it within the curriculum. Does that make sense? So the information that was on the site, we saw it there, it was of value, but is it something that the literacy team just looks at and says, okay, this is great, it's in conjunction with what we're doing, or do they take certain portions and literally implement? Ultimately what we want to see is that the aspects of what you call it? So similar to Empower, right? The aspects of Empower that we see of value, let's share some of those same qualities. We wanted to see if those are going to be used in the curriculum and household.
Yes, through you, Chair. So we have a multi-department team that comes together. Connor sits on the committee, I sit ad hoc to the committee. What we've done is, as the literacy is being implemented, and we're taking a coaching model to moving the curriculum and understanding. And so as we do that, our math plan went forward to the Board of Trustees on Monday night. The literacy plan will be following. And the literacy leadership team is confirmed for coming to SEAC in our January meeting. And we'll be reserving them a fair amount of time so that all the questions can come forward. We just started phase 2 of the supports to schools. So our phase 1 schools have had support from the start of the school year, roughly till last week, I believe. And then this week we launched our phase 2 schools, because the combined team that has literacy coaches, which are teachers, and our speech paths that are over in those dedicated portfolio positions this year, going out and working right inside classrooms with educators And so we thought that getting through cycle 1 and 2 and then coming to SEAC with the feedback of how that's going and how that would be changed or modified for phase 3 in January would be a really important point for us, both in terms of information through SEAC, but also SEAC's feedback the other way to the literacy teams as well. So Superintendent Elmhurst has confirmed that the team's coming in January to speak to
So
SEAC.
the first 2 phases are more, not trials per se, but looking to see how where the value is and then bring it to us.
More specifically, so I would come away from audit a little bit. And before we get to specific tools and resources,
Right.
how that's coming through the human rights, anti-discrimination, anti-racism policy into action, taking an anti-oppressive lens that supports relationships, connections, belonging and mattering in all of our classrooms, then layering the new literacy curriculum. So the inclusive design kind of year 2 through the secondaries and the new literacy curriculum in elementaries. And kind of those 5 pillars of the curriculum, putting the consistency to those that have always been there, such as comprehension, but bringing the phonemic awareness and phonics back in as an important part of the literacy block. And then the team is looking at a number of resources, but we're really starting heavy tier 1. While there are groups that are looking at those tier 2, tier 3 interventions for kids that are, we don't have reading gaps. And so we'll be able to, once the literacy plan goes through our board of trustees, bring that to this table and have the team come alongside to bring the kind of qualitative aspect of that and how it's going in classrooms as well. But the team's looking at a number of resources and tools, but the real anchor is that understanding of how the brain works as a literacy learner and as a learner to learn literacy. And it's really those 5 core elements to literacy program, and then the tools such as OnLit and some of the other programs build out into there. But we don't often jump to a resource or a tool without putting the kind of foundational part in. And we do appreciate that our educators, and just looking at Melissa as one of our elementary administrators, the release time for the new literacy curriculum concurrent to the expected implementation. We're just pacing it within the system, and again, not seeing it distinct and different from those core policies that are, so how do we do literacy from an identity affirming, belonging, mattering, well-being component? Because we've often done them parallel, but this is how do we do that in an infused way? I don't know if that.
That makes sense.
But they're coming here, Rowan, so that you'll be able to ask, I believe Superintendent Elmhurst is gonna come with the team. And we've got some pretty phenomenal teachers and speech pathologists, that this is actually year 3 for them in the inquiry work. Because we know we need to do literacy instruction different, particularly around our learners with LD. And so also a reminder that one of those teams, although most of the teams have focused kind of in that primary early literacy learner, there is a team specifically looking at adolescent literacy learning. So what happens if we're at grade 7, 8, 9, 10, and we are not yet at a point of being a literate learner? How do we do that in a way that is developmentally and relationally appropriate for a young adolescent going in those grades? It looks different from a resource perspective, skills-based perspective. And so there's a team specifically looking at that. And then concurrent to that, Michelle, Lisa and I have been meeting with a group of researchers around supporting learners who are deaf or hard of hearing around literacy, because again, a couple of the anchors of the new curriculum rightfully situate on oral language. So we want to make sure that we're addressing the learning needs of all of our learners, including those for whom oral language is not part of how they access communication. And we do know that our deaf, hard of hearing learners have higher fatigue in classrooms and are often, there are academic gaps opening where intellectually there should not be. And so we're quite excited. We've had 2 meetings now, just looking at framing out an inquiry project that will have our kids centered in how it's going for them. So we're just trying to move that, but I would also see us after phase 2, really sitting down with LDAPR, specific to learners with LD, and looking at that specifically in probably a working session, if you don't mind, between the association and the district steering committee for literacy. That would be great and much appreciated. We just kind of need to figure out, get through and the feedback from school teams and classroom educators informing the plan, and then we can bring it forward. Now, how do we refine it even further, based on the expertise that the association brings, through research review and connection with families.
Okay, any other questions with respect to that? All right.
I have an Adam story.
Oh, that's it, got your.
So Adam turned 17 a couple weeks ago. Yes. And one of the things we actually had, so he's had a friend, they met in Beavers, so that tells you how long they've been friends. And over what we did for the pandemic, like during COVID, where we really could get together with a lot of stuff, they were sort of in our little bubble, and we had a tea party. We actually went all out and did like high tea with like sandwiches with the crust cut off, and we had tea and we sat there. So now ever since then, Adam and his friend Luke have wanted to have tea parties. So we actually had a tea party this past weekend, but this was the first time that the two of them actually had an interactive conversation. And I know it sounds really stupid and small, but it was so huge for both of us. So it was just all of the things that everybody's been working on, all the speech pathology and everything else around crime. It was just awesome to see that the two of them were finally interacting. Like normally they're very happy to be just co-playing, you know, and they're together in the same room and they're happy that they're there, but they're not really interacting. This was, both of us were in tears, like honestly, it was, yeah, this moment I was tears.
Small things mean everything.
Yeah.
It's just everything.
So I'm sorry.
Follow a lady on Facebook called Diary of a Mom. And if you've ever followed her, she's just so inspirational. And it's that stuff she focuses on. It's like
Yes.
small things that seem like not much are everything, and they really are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so nice. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That is a celebration. Wait,
No, it was huge. The two of us were, you know, jaw on the floor and then we both started crying. But
it's
happy tears, but yeah.
yeah, no, makes everything, right? Because it's future.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that that's been his bugaboo the whole time, like standard, you know, lots of things with communication with him. He's verbal, which is great, but a lot of kids with Down syndrome are not, because it's just the tongue gets in the way and no one can understand them. And it's so wonderful to see that it's finally working. Like he's been going to speech therapy for 10 years, you know, and it's finally getting to the point where strangers can understand him. Like he can order burger and fries at a restaurant and the waitress can understand what he said. Like that's so huge, huge, really, to be no longer invisible.
Yeah.
It's just great.
It's everything. It's independence.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is a great story. Thanks for sharing that. And on that fantastic note, our next SEAC meeting is scheduled for December 14th. It's really important that everybody come because that is our organizational meeting. So we absolutely need form next month. So please. Oh. Yeah, I'll let you know in just a second. Okay. Motion for adjournment? Tara, Elizabeth, all in favor? Thank you. Good night, everybody.